Okay. You don't need to run appointments while you're there. If you don't want to, you can if you want to. You don't have to. What you do need to do is set your appointments while you're there. Here's how you do that. You block off time every day to do those sets. For those of you who have teammates there, okay, you should invite them or run appointment setting incentives or contests while you're there with them. We always did that. There's never a time when your people are going to be more focused and ready to take action than there. Okay, so don't blow it. Have a plan. Have a plan. What does a plan look like? On Thursday, this is what I'm doing. I'm running the contest from this time. This is what we're competing for. On Friday, this is what we're doing. On Saturday, this is what we're doing, right? You got to have a game plan. Do not miss that opportunity to drive your people's activity and also to do that for yourself. If I were you, I'd be taking today and tomorrow, and I would have my 2 best activity days I've had so far. What's the most amount of appointments you've set in the time we've been working together? Take that number and add a few to it today and tomorrow. Okay. And you want to go in with a lot of momentum so you come out with a lot to harvest. Everybody good with that? Fantastic. Okay. So I want to open it up really quickly to any questions on anything that we've been going through, any issues you're having getting traction, any stuff that isn't clear, any yeah buts like, hey, I'm doing this and now I'm finding this challenge. Let's get you what you need real quick before we move on. Who has anything? If you don't have anything, it's fine. But if you have it, speak now. I don't want to move forward without getting you what you need right now. Going once. Going twice. All right, Rick, can you throw up the docs really quickly? I want to take a look at it. Uh-oh, it's that time again. Let's see what you've been doing, right? Listen, the number one thing that stops people from making more money in business is a lack of accountability. They just don't stay accountable to the things that move the needle. So Kent, great job. You're number 1 on the docs at 20. Kent, what are you doing every day? What's your rhythm look like every day to sit at number 1?
Well, you told me to say, have 1 hour a time to do set appointments, and that's what I've been really focusing on doing. And through my team and through everybody else is what's creating, but me personally, that's what I'm doing. And then I'm taking the information you're giving me, and then I'm teaching them the same way, bringing them along the leadership to be able to do that as well.
Okay, fantastic. So Kent, let me ask you a question. Do you think that you can still keep crushing Dawn and Richard and Justin and Randy next week? Because they're the 4 that are closest to you, but you're like doubling them, right? You're doubling them. So do you think you can beat all 4 of them again next week, or what do you think? You think one of those 4 is
after your suggestion on the appointment setting and doing it I never even thought about that, but running a contest to do that, that's freaking brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, so Dawn and Richard and Justin and Randy, Kent's saying you can't touch him. That's what he's telling you right now. And so you got to decide, like, am I okay with that? Am I okay with Kent, who I don't know, beating me? Or am I going to step up here and be number 1 on those docs? So listen, a lot of you are doing more than you've done before, but none of you are doing enough. Okay, our docs should be over 30 at this point. That's the magic, right? They should be over 30. If they're not there, it's because you're choosing not to do the work. If you continue to choose not to do the work, you are by default choosing not to make the money. You need to understand that, right? The good news is it's just a choice. Okay, so you got a little bit of homework today. Here's your homework, y'all. You ready? Okay. You need to set a record amount of sets today. This is not your 5 or 6. This is a record amount of sets today. Okay. At 9 o'clock tonight, I need you to post out to the Telegram in this group what you got set. Do not set 3 or 4. Okay. Listen, if you're in the single digits on here, here's what I know. You have all day today, right? Because you have 1 appointment a day for the rest of the week. That's what you got. So you got all day to set. And so that's what we're going to do today, all day, if we need to, right? Because we do whatever it takes, right, Ron? Does that make sense, Randy? We do what does it take? Whatever it takes. That's what we do. We do whatever it takes. Okay, so I need everybody to jump up there. And again, I need you to understand that if you do not, go ahead, Rick, and pull that off the screen. You do not get that activity up. You do not have the raw material you need to consist. You might make an extra 100K, but you're not going to make an extra 100K over and over and over again. Right? You might pull out a couple of trades and but I'm talking about, I want you to make that always, right? Like get it up there and keep it up there and keep growing it. And that's going to come from activity. Okay. So I need you to do that. Is anybody unclear on what I need you to send me tonight and what you're doing today for your activity challenge? Okay, good. Now, be honest. Do you feel like, oh no, oh gosh, that's going to be hard. Do you have any sort of negativity towards it? If you do, you need to head check, right? Okay, because your thinking isn't right. Those people got your money, you all. Those appointments have your money. Your 100K, it's in their bank accounts. You need to go get it in an exchange of value, right? So that's how I looked at it, Dawn. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm going to send another one and another one and another one. Why? Because that's all my money, right? If I got 40, 50 people to see, I'm going to go get a lot of money. If I got 4, I'm going to get 10% of what I should have, right? So this is our thinking. We want to learn to love the dailies, right? If you look at a bodybuilder, you all, nobody likes going to the gym and breaking their muscles down to the point of failure. But bodybuilders, eventually, they do like going to the gym because they learn to love the process, because the process is what gets them the results, right? And that's what you're going to learn here. Everybody wants results. Very few people want to learn to love the process and be great at the process that gets results. Ironically, Justin, that's the thing that gets you results repeatedly, not just one time, right? True or false? Most of you have been one-hit wonders at some point in your career in financial services. You've had a good month or a good little run, or you had, right? Yeah, so you won once or twice or 3 times, but not consistently winning. That's the difference. Do you see, right? Our activity levels create consistency in winning. Okay, any questions at all before we move on? Going once, going twice. Okay, we went a little out of order. Remind me, were we in business owner, or did we actually get to some of the kitchen table presentations?
Business owner. Next is the presentation.
We did complete the business owners, right? Okay.
Yep.
Have any of you been working that this week? Okay. Richard worked. How did it go, Richard?
So, Ian, I've been networking for several years. And one of the things that I wasn't doing was the tie down. So I went back and listened to what you're saying, and a dramatic increase in from business owner when I'm doing the appointment. Hey, who does your life insurance? And I'm getting a ton more appointments. Magical increase in getting a second appointment from that first one. That what you say, that scheduling the one-to-ones with them, it's just magic. Works every time, like 80%.
Yeah, it's easy activity. And so what you're finding was one little tweak, right? And all of a sudden, your complete rates go through the roof because you're setting proper expectations and you're framing. It's not a million possible things. It's a couple things they can say. Good. All right. So we're going to move into the client acquisition presentations. Okay. And so I want to make sure that you understand a few components. Number one, you don't need to change your presentation. Okay. In any substantive way. If what you're doing works and you feel comfortable with it. And by the way, works means your close rate is more than 40%. If your close rate is less than 40%, what you're doing doesn't work very well. Okay. But if it's more than 40, you do not need to change your presentation. You need to augment your presentation. So Richard, you didn't change everything you were doing. You changed one thing, just one line, and it made a really big difference for you. That's how this stuff works, right? You can be 98% of the way there and not get very much result at all, as that last 2% is where magic happens. Okay, so I'm going to give you a framework here, okay? But before I do that, the most important part of a client acquisition presentation are tie downs. If then tie downs. If you are not tying people down, you're going to get a lot of, let me think about it. Let me get the information. Let me talk to so-and-so. Let me do some research. Let me take this to somebody. The tie downs are everything. So you do not need to change all of what you're doing, but what I need you to listen to when I'm going to teach you, because every word is on purpose. Every way that it's crafted is by design, and it's really there to help duplication, right? So think about it like this. It's a little more work on the front end to get good at delivering this, But instead of having 5,000 potential objections that you or your people might have to deal with on the back, we really limit that to like 5 or 6, right? So it's a little more on the front end, but it's a lot less work on the back end. Does that make sense? Which takes more time to develop, back end skill set or reading a script, right? Back end skill set takes a lot more time to develop. Being able to sit in a close and stay there for 4 or 5 no's and not get emotional and stay professional is much harder than reading a script. So if I'm gonna have something hard, Paul, I'm gonna have it up front, not in the back. Does that make sense to you? Okay. So it's important that you understand how the framework is set up, because that way it becomes really, really interchangeable. So I'm going to draw you something here. Give me one moment. You should be able to see this now. Can you see my remarkable? Okay. So it's important that you build this in a framework so that you can substitute it and you understand how to use this idea to build other presentations, whether it's a recruiting presentation or an investment presentation or whatever it is that you're doing. You can use the same thing, right? Okay, so step 1 in giving the presentation, okay, is the principle of consistency. What that means is at the very beginning, Kent, we're going to thank them for their time and remind them why we're meeting. Hey, Kent, I appreciate your time today. Like I told you over the phone, I wanted to show you guys what I was doing so that if you or somebody you knew in the future could use what I was doing, you'd feel good enough that you'd be able to refer me. So I appreciate your time, right? So I'm going to invoke the principle of consistency. Remember this, most of the people you have appointments with, Richard, don't remember why they're meeting you. I know that seems weird, but you called them out of the blue, or you sent them a message out of the blue. They agreed to meet with you, and then they go back to their life. And 4 or 5 days later, they have a meeting with you. They may remember it has something to do with finance, but they don't remember much more than that. But they will remember when you remind them of what you said. And what that does is it builds trust and it brings down their walls because you're already doing what you said you were going to do. Okay? So principle of consistency. Number 2, permission to present. Ken, is it all right if I just take a couple of minutes and share with you what we do and how we help people? Fantastic. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move into the first part of the presentation, okay, which is technically part of the body. So I'm going to draw this over here. Okay. So it's technically part of the body of the presentation. But the first part is the company. Okay. So most of you, I think most or if not all of you in this group are in the same business. So I'm going to say, hey, Richard, is it all right if I, thanks for meeting with me today. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. Like I told you on the phone, I wanted to show you some things. If you were somebody you knew, blah, 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 blah. So if it's okay with you, I'd just love to take 5 or 10 minutes to just quickly show you what we do, how we help people. Is that okay? Fantastic. So Richard, so I'm actually involved with a company called blah, 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 whatever your company is, right? Have you ever heard of us before? Yes, no. What I want to know is this neutral, positive, or negative? Most people were neutral or positive. Some people were negative. If they were negative, I wanted to know why before I waste my time presenting, right? Because if they're wondering, oh, is this that? And you just talking and talking, they're not listening. They're just figuring out how to get out of what you're saying to them, right? Okay, so I want to figure out, what do you know? So most of the time they're going to say, no, I've never heard of it. I say, well, that's totally normal. We don't advertise. We work totally off of referrals and word of mouth. So the only way you would really know of us is if you knew somebody that works with us. Totally normal. Okay. If they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of that before, I'd say, great. How did you hear about us? Well, my cousin, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I'm just going to ask some questions. Did your cousin get licensed? So you must be a client, right? That's one of my favorite lines. Oh, I know about that. Oh, fantastic. So you must be a client already. Well, no. Well, I thought you said you heard about this. Well, I did. Well, you must not have heard about it from me then, because if you did, you'd be a client. So anyways, then I'm right back into it, right? So you got to be prepared there, but you got to go straight at it. If you don't address that up front, you will address it on the back from time to time. And then you just wasted all your time and you got to dig out of a hole. I want to know there's a hole there in the beginning so we can jump over it together. Does that make sense, you all? Okay. So I'm going to go to the company and then 2 jobs, right? So the company I work with is a company called Primerica Financial Services. You probably heard of us. Oh, no, I haven't. Oh, that's pretty normal. You know, we work word of mouth. You probably wouldn't have heard of us unless you knew somebody that's working with us. But anyways, Kent, listen, at Primerica, we actually have 2 jobs. One job is we help educate families on how money works. And we teach them some ways to do things like get out of debt faster, save money on taxes, save money on insurance, and actually take some of that savings and save it for things like retirement or kids' college education or starting a business. And Kent, we actually have 50,000 families a month right now switch their finances over to us company-wide. So it's a pretty big company. You would agree with that, yeah? Fantastic. So company, and then how, right? So company, 2 jobs, and then how. So Kent, how we do that is we take our clients through something we call a financial needs analysis. And the best way to think about that is sort of like a financial GPS. So Kent, imagine you were going to go on a road trip from where you live to Los Angeles. Kent, where do you live?
Lakeland, Florida.
Lakeland, Florida. So you're going to go from Lakeland to Los Angeles, okay? So you would probably put it in Waze, right? Or maybe Google Maps, or if you were really old school, you might go to MapQuest and print out 4 pages of directions. But you likely wouldn't just start driving west, right? Why?
Right. There's a water in the way.
Yeah, you'd end up in the ocean like Michael Scott, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, but the reason why is you might get there following signs, but you absolutely won't get there efficiently. You take
Correct.
all sorts of wrong turns, extra miles, traffic backups, right? Okay. So like everybody gets having a plan, Kent, when it comes to a 3-day road trip. Everybody understands the value of that. Ironically, most people don't use that same logic when it comes to their finances. They don't have a plan. They're just sort of like doing the best they can with what they have, right? They got like, I got a 401k at work. I got an old 401k over here. I have my auto insurance guy here. I got this guy here. And they're just trying to like put it together and hope it works. They're just doing the best they can with what they have. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
So Kent, let me ask you a question. So out of curiosity, do you have a written plan that deals with all of these things, or are you just sort of doing the best you can with what you have?
Doing the best I can.
Yeah, man, it's most people, right? So listen, having a plan would be better than not having a plan. You'd agree, right?
100%.
Okay. So here are tie downs 1 and 2. What was tie down 1, right? Do you have a plan, or are you just doing like everybody else the best you can with what you have? I've never, ever met anybody that said they had a plan. Now, sometimes they say they have a financial person, or they'll think they have a plan. And I'd say, great, what's your debt freedom date? What's your financial independence number? Say, well, I don't know. I say, well, I thought you said you had a plan. Well, I do have a plan. Well, if you had the right plan, you would know that number for sure. You would know it like the back of your hand. When you're done with my plan, you'll know those. Right? So see how this is built, right? Like I can shift any direction at almost any point with the most common objections because of how this is worded. So tie down 1 is having a plan, or is not having a plan, right? Do you have a plan like this, or are you just like most people doing the best you can with what you have? Okay. Tie down 2 is what?
It's better.
Yeah,
One's
so
better.
obviously, yeah. So Kent, obviously, if you could have a plan, having a plan would be better than not having a plan. Wouldn't you agree?
Yep.
So watch what's happening here, Ron, right? Like he told me he doesn't have one, but he should have one. Like this is not rocket science, Jen, right? Like I don't have this, but I should have this, because guess what I'm going to offer him next? this, right? Yeah. So step 5 is the offer. So Kent, you're right. Having a plan is definitely better than not having a plan. So here's what I'd like to do with you, Kent. I'd like to schedule a time to get back together with you and to take you through one of these plans. Okay. So the average cost, Kent, have a financial advisor do a specific plan according to Consumer Reports, about $1,100. Okay. And we do it, Kent, for a price that nobody bickers about. We do it for free. Okay. But because we do it for free, Kent, I do ask for 2 things in return. So there's the offer is free, right? And here's tie downs 3 and 4. This is number 6. So tie down 3 and 4. So this thing is ripe with tie downs, right? Why is it ripe with tie downs? Because I don't want you weaseling out. Right? And so when I tie you down, I eliminate your escape hatches. That's what I've buttoned them down. You can't get out this way or that way anymore. I've outsmarted you. It's not my first rodeo. I know the likely paths you're going to take to try to avoid responsibility. And I'm going to button those up so you can't. Right? So, Kent, because it's free, we do ask for 2 things in return. The first thing that I ask for is this. When we get done with this, and you can look at me across your Zoom, and you can say, Ian, this was really good. Absolutely worth doing. Totally beneficial. Kent, I'm going to ask that you would be willing and able to refer me to 5 to 10 people who are married, have kids, have a home, and have an income. People like you that might find some of the same free information valuable like you did. Okay, now Kent, listen, when we're back together, if you're like, I already knew all this, you were really pushy, whatever, I don't want the referrals. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, guys, he just agreed to the terms of service here. How you don't get an F&A after this is, I don't understand, right? Like, I do understand it's because you didn't do these parts, right? It's because you're just giving information. You're hoping information will convince them. The information doesn't convince people. People convince people, right? Okay. So the second thing I'm going to ask Kent is that when we get back together, okay, and I come back with a plan that does get you out of debt faster, it does better protect your family, it does help you save more or more efficiently than you're saving now. And we can do all those things, Randy, for the same or less per month than we're paying to do them now. Randy, I'm going to ask that you would move forward with the improvements that we found for you. Okay. Now, Randy, when we get back together, if you're like, hey, this isn't any better, it's more expensive, it doesn't make any sense, I would never ask you to make the changes. Okay. But if it is clearly better, Randy, I want you to do what is better. Is that fair? Does that make sense to you? Great. The sale is done. Right? Sale is done right here. He has agreed to the terms of service. If I do this, you'll do that. Right, Justin? Does that make sense? The only thing you're ever going to get on this is like people after you do it, they're like, oh, I want to think about it for a couple of days or do a little research. And then you just remind them, Justin, hey, do you remember before we did this when I asked you this? And guess what principle you're invoking again? The principle of consistency, right? Do you remember when I said, if I could do this, you do that? Yes. And do you remember what you told me? Yes. And I have done that now, right? Yes. Okay. So now it's time for you to keep up your end of that agreement and to move forward. Right? So let's go ahead and get started. I can just remind you of what you've already agreed to and hold you to your character of standing up to what you said. Right? So again, all of this is built very strategically so that the 10 or 12 most common detours that get taken all get fixed in here, right? All right, so I've tied you down. I've gotten some approvals from you. Fantastic. So Kent, what we're going to need is just like maybe 60 minutes, 90 minutes tops, okay? We can look at our schedule in a second. And What I'm gonna like for you to have at that point would be like statements or access to statements, like credit cards, student loans, mortgage, insurances, investments, that sort of stuff. Okay. Now, if you can't find some of it, it's not the end of the world. Likely you have a working knowledge that'll be enough. Okay. So don't call me and be like, I can't find something, I need to reschedule. We do our best, but we'll be good. Okay. That makes sense. Great.
Makes
So
sense.
Thursday at 7, Friday at 6. What's best? We get it set. Great. It's in your calendar. Great. You know you need to be looking at for these things, right? Okay, fantastic. Hey, Kent, really quickly, before we adjourn today, there are a couple of things that I'd like to chat about with you really quickly, and maybe even be able to pick up a copy of to take with me to start doing a little bit of research so that when I come back on Thursday, I already have some of this done for you. So those two things, Kent, number one is your investment accounts. Do you have any like old IRAs, 401ks, anything like that sitting around?
Yeah, I have I left my job and I didn't move my 401k.
Great. And do you have like online access to it? You look it up?
I can. Yep.
Okay, great. So what we'll do is we're going to log in and look at that really briefly. If you're okay with that, I'm going to take a screenshot. I'm just going to tell you where I need you to go. I'm going to screenshot that so I see what you have and how your fees and risks and all that work. Okay.
All right.
All right, good. The second thing that I'd like to chat on just briefly is your life insurance. You obviously have some life insurance, right?
Just have some through work.
Okay. So at this point, now we're into the 5 life insurance scenarios. Verbatim, plug and play. Okay, plug and play. So number 7 is the set. We're going to set the FNA. Number 8 is the switch to insurance investment combo. Right? That's what we're doing there. And what I'm going to do is I want statements on investments. I'm not going to get into an investment conversation with you. I want to see what you have and how it works. What I am going to get into is an insurance conversation. See, obviously I have some life insurance since it's just through work. And then I just pick up only through work, nothing else. Great. Would you mind if I give you a little 2-minute tutorial on how group life insurance works? Mini presentation, frame, close, done. We'll get to that in a couple of weeks. We also have that information already in this group, okay, in one of the presentations. So you can go and watch that on your own. We don't need to take our time together to do it. Okay, so we're going to have that combo. We're going to close, right? We're going to close. And 9 is we're going to foreshadow, either for referrals or agents, for those of you in an agency model. Okay, if you're not an agency model, again, referrals. If you aren't an agency model, I do an agency foreshadow. So what does that mean, Robert? So I've closed your life app. I got your investment statements. We're meeting Thursday for a financial needs analysis. So you've agreed to refer me people and to move forward. You've already moved forward on a piece of it. Okay. So I'm going to say, all right, Robert, so I'm going to see you Thursday at 7. I'm really looking forward to it. Just one last thing before we're done. And I'd be remiss to not at least ask you this. Okay. But Robert, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, I hate helping people. I also hate making money. This would not be for me. 10 being, if I could make a few $1,000s a month on the side, helping somebody do what you just did for me, I'd be interested in learning more. Just based on what you've seen so far, Robert, where would you put yourself on that scale of 1 to 10?
I guess I'm open to looking at it. So I would say a 10. I mean, I was always looking for extra money.
So what I'd like you to do is write down whatever questions you might have about that between now and Thursday. And when we get back together on Thursday, we'll talk a little bit more about it. I am rarely ever going to try to do multiple transactions at the same time. Why? Because people get overwhelmed. It takes a long time and then they get buyer's remorse and they feel like, what did I just buy? What did I just sign up for? Gosh, that was a lot. That was overwhelming. That was too much. It was so long, right? One thing at a time, solid commitment on the next go round. Richard, go ahead really quickly.
Real quick, are you closing life insurance at this one or at the start of the FNA?
I'm closing the life now. If you're there and I'm there and it makes sense, we're doing it now. There's no benefit to wait. By the way, when I get back, I need to do the FNA and close your investment business and recruit you and get your referrals. So I already got a big to-do list on that FNA. I don't want to be closing your business then. I want to already be done with it. So it's a good question. All right, so guys, listen, you need a record set today. post out to the Telegram tonight when you are done what you got set. Think big, have an activity plan while you're at the convention, and enjoy yourself. Find that connection to why you started.